going to toss some questions here and there, but I'm just going to say why we've got this panel, why we asked these three experts to be here. Because one of the big challenges, at least for our group, is how to transform the larger spaces, because there's a lot everywhere. How do you do it well? How do you not have it turn into nothing but goldenrod? How do you maintain it? How do you keep the public excited versus bored? I don't know, there's all kinds of questions. How do you finance it? There's lots of questions that they're going to address, so I'm going to hear from each, from Dave Heithaus, Susan King, and Michael Keeler. I always want to put an N in there. All of whom have had great experiences, but different experiences doing this work. So let's just get started.
Hi everybody, my name is Dave Heithaus. I'm the director of the Knox County Park District, formerly director at the Brown Family Environmental Center at Kenyon College. So I've been in the pollinator game for about a quarter century now, mostly at the landscape level. So we're talking about prairies more than garden beds. But Susan and Michael are going to do a really good job with some specific project whys and hows. So I thought I'd take a slightly different tack on my whys, and that is some of the co-benefits that you get with these ecological restorations. I think everybody in this room knows that these are important habitats for supporting pollinators, as well as a lot of other wildlife. But people do these for additional reasons too, and these are just going to be a few of the projects I've been affiliated with that included some plus eco benefits. So the one we're looking at here, this is the Kokosing Nature Preserve. It's managed by the Philander Chase Conservancy Land Trust. This was a prairie that was broadcast, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. And it's also, the reason this was done wasn't just for ecology, it was also for profit. This is a green burial cemetery that's run by the Land Trust. And they wanted to create a beautiful natural space that would be appealing for people to spend the rest of their, well, post-time. So this property is primarily mow-maintained, but that we're getting into how. So that's, the first example, I think one of the more unique ones is, you've created the acres and acres and acres of prairie for the purpose of interring human beings. These are just a couple more pictures from this. Again, because of the aesthetic, that they're going for, they very, very forward heavy in this one. Not a lot of grass, which does have some management implications on down the road. Another reason that one might install a prairie is straight up educational purposes. This is a prairie that I've been involved with for decades at this point. This predates my time even at Kenyon. This prairie was installed essentially for educational purposes. This is the first one done at the Brown Family Environmental Center. It was done with the idea that you'd be able to do wildlife surveys, plant surveys, do some thermal buffering studies of, when you do burn these prairies, what actually is the thermal impact underground. So, another reason that you might do this is and at the schools that Terry spoke about earlier, these are really great educational resources too. So those are good whys. Recreation, the same prairie that's used as a bit of a land lab is also employed in a number of festivals throughout the year of special events where people just come out and they enjoy the aesthetic. That they're probably not thinking about the wildlife benefits, but it's just a nice, pretty, enjoyable place to be. And then aesthetics as well as education and the eco benefits. This is a labyrinthine prairie that was also installed at the Brown Family Environmental Center. The idea with this one is it's a place for reflection. It's a place where you can go out and just enjoy some time with your thoughts. It's actually about a half mile from the outside to the inside. It's not a maze, it is a path. This is also used for educational purposes with some of the humanities courses there at Kenyon. And it was also designed as sort of a juxtaposition of different kinds of habitats that the Environmental Center wants to showcase. I mean, ultimately, Ohio would prefer to be a forest rather than a prairie in most instances. So in this particular installation, the area to the left will continue to be managed as prairie, as the labyrinth itself, the concentric rings that are involved in that have been planted with a number of species of native oak trees. So eventually that will grow up into a forest and will not be maintained as a prairie.
Where's this?
This is in Gambier, Ohio, at the Brown Family Environmental Center. It's on Lehman Road, right next to the Cocosum State Scenic River. So it's a thing to behold. And I'd say this is not my photo, so if somebody in the room took this, thank you, it's a good photo. Just to put a point on it, the aesthetics is a reason to plant these prairies and put these pollinator plots out. I mean, as beneficial as they are to animals, they're beneficial to us. With season, regardless of the season, you can go out and you can look at this thing. I don't know about you, it just makes me feel better. So I think that's the slide that I will close on, I think, and I will turn it over to Michael.
My name is Michael Keeler. I'm the owner of Ohio Native Concepts. We're an ecological landscape design and installation company, working mostly in Franklin County, but also in this area and out in Licking County, which is where this project is. Since we're kind of touching on why, I thought I'd share a little story about this, kind of why we started this project, but then now the owners of this land, what they feel like the purpose of it is now. So originally it was just turf grass. They were paying somebody bi-weekly, around 20 hours to mow it. So it's pretty expensive, and not to mention the diesel from the tractor, the maintenance on the tractor, putting hours on it. So I kind of presented them with the numbers of it. If you spend this now, this is what you'll save each year. And that's kind of what got them on board originally. And after we installed it, this is year 3, so this was this past July. You can see we've got a lot more diversity in here, but it's still a fairly young prairie. But we were sitting down having a conversation. Their front porch is sitting right off of this 10-acre prairie. And they said what they enjoy most now is that they have this natural clock that they didn't have before. In the morning, the red-winged blackbirds do their robotic calls, so that's kind of their signal. In the morning, they like to go out and have their coffee at that time. By early afternoon, the goldfinches are out, so they'll watch them dip down and pick off insects. As the day goes on, you'll get the sparrows in the evening. You'll start seeing a lot more insect activity hovering over it, and then the bats come out at night. So they have this clock throughout the day, throughout the growing season that they didn't have before, and they realized the only thing they ever really had to kind of like cue this was like just looking out the sunlight. But now they have this entire clock where they are more in tune with nature. And ultimately, that's one of my main goals, is to connect people back with nature. I think that's really what got us into a lot of the messes we're in today with the environment, is that we've separated ourselves. So I thought that was a really great way to kind of look at this. And they also get the seasonal changes as well, right? It's not just tree change now. They get to watch us move into dried seed stalks. They get to watch the birds in the winter. In the spring, they have the plants start coming up. Again, they get baby bunnies, they've had baby fox. We haven't seen it, but they do have a bobcat hiding out somewhere. So at year 3, this is more about what we're seeing now in diversity. And yeah, the first year is like all black-eyed Susans. In the second talk later, you'll see those images. And I remember talking to the grandmother in the family, and she was like, am I going to be around to see these flowers? I had to remind her that black-eyed Susans are flowers, and luckily she's still around, and she still sees the flowers today, so now she constantly reminds me every time I see her. She thanks me for being able to see these flowers, but really they're doing all the work. And this is just some of the insects that we're seeing there. So again, for another reason why, of course, we're doing it for the pollinators. I think the benefits we get as humans is just a bonus. There's my favorite, off to the left, visiting some wild bird lot. I think, yep. So, yeah, really what we're seeing is somewhere around, I haven't done a survey this past year, but the year before, even with limited species, we were still seeing around 30 species of insects, just in like a typical walkthrough. And our plant count is around 30 different species of flowers and grasses. They're constantly kind of adding more. programs like this where we get free seeds, things like that, and we just throw them out there. So it's ever changing, and I just think a really great example of taking this space that was just, I mean, it was completely useless apart from if you wanted to have a big party out there or something, or even have a soccer game. But otherwise, it just sat there, and it cost them money and energy. So they wanted something better.
Hi, I'm Susan King from Pollinator Pathway in Licking County, and I'm really delighted to share a little bit about the Meadows for Monarchs project that we just concluded our first year. This was a project that actually U.S. Fish and Wildlife came to us. They had some funding, and they said, we really like what you're doing, and we want to figure out a way to amplify what you're doing and creating more habitat, specifically for monarchs. So we had to have a project with monarch in the name, and through a collaborative effort came up with Meadows for Monarchs project. And the idea is such that we're really trying to help landowners convert these big swaths of turf grass that Michael just shared into high quality habitat by providing some training on how to do it, the seed mixes to plant, and then kind of creating this community that you're part of something bigger. So that was really the idea. The why, again, if you don't, not everyone cares about the bumblebees and the birds and the butterflies, but they might care about their budget, another B word. And the City of Newark, which has been a partner, actually ran the numbers for one of their properties, Levin Park, in the Newark area, where there was a field behind the ball field that's not used for ball, for any sport really, but they were mowing it, so they actually calculated what it was going to cost them in labor and gas, and used that to convince their leadership to invest in converting that land. So in the background you can see the black-eyed Susans in bloom. Similarly, an HOA in the Granville area did a similar calculus with some area that was not adjacent. It was adjacent to their neighborhood, and they put in a tall grass prairie, also saving on mowing costs. So for the Meadows for Monarchs project, this is a partnership of a lot of organizations. We've been fortunate since the beginning of Pollinator Pathway in Licking County that it came together with a lot of organizations that say we need to continue to collaborate. And we did that over the past year with a number of workshops. Dawes Arboretum provided 3 webinars. Those are recorded, they're on our website. So any one of you want to rewatch them, they're there. They focused on design and site prep and also the maintenance to be able to create these meadows. One of the other workshops, we had some hands-on workshops as well in partnership with Master Gardeners and OSU Extension. Ohio State Extension did education on safe herbicide use. That is one of the tools in the toolbox for creating and doing the preparation for some of these sites. You don't want to throw very expensive seed on turf grass. We also had a panel discussion with Licking Park District and the City of Newark, as well as Butterfly Ridge. We also did a prairie tour at the Dawes Arboretum to show folks who have enrolled in Meadows for Monarchs what their prairie looks like at year 1, year 2, year 3. So Dawes has been progressively converting more of their farmland into prairies, and so they were able to demonstrate that. We had one that's not showing, but I can just share quickly. We also had a workshop with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, their biologists, who do this work every day all over the state, and they shared how to convert larger spaces, larger agricultural areas, utilizing herbicide, again, as a method for the site prep. When it came time to distribute the seed, we had the added wrinkle of the extended government shutdown. So they had the seed. We had 30 plus landowners excited for their seed, but they had no way to mix and measure it. So as a testament to the partnerships, our friends at Dawes stepped up. They also added some of the seed that they collected to the mix. We were able to mix and measure and distribute it. So we were able to, through this project, create habitat across the county, so it's not just one town, it's all across a lot of small towns. Here's a map of some of those sites. Again, distributed across the county, and they varied in size from as small as 50 square feet. We used pond liner as a way to, one of the methods for site prep, to smother. So that was the size of the pond liner pieces. But then also a church actually converted a lawn into meadow, and that was a 5-acre site. So 32 total plots, calculated about 2 million plants, and about 24 total acres of what was turf grass that is now high quality habitat. So we wanted to kind of just give some overview of what our respective organizations do, but we really wanted to give an opportunity for you all to ask us questions. So I'm going to sit down and you'll be able to pose questions to any one of us on the panel.
What an incredible array of slides and examples on the why, very much on the why. So if we're going to talk that right now, I guess I'm going to start it off with a question and then let's open it up. I think this is the biggest question. How do you convince people of the why before you go to the how? And my first reaction is, how could they not see those slides and not say, yeah, I want to do this? You've got a labyrinth. You've got pathways where people can be buried and then their relatives can walk and visit. I mean, there's so many whys in this. You can have an hourly clock outside your yard instead of just sitting there watching the grass grow. So how do we take what you've just, I guess this is my question. How do we take what you three have just presented and bring it to people on a larger scale? How do we get the word out? Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, there's such a convincing argument just in the three presentations. Thoughts on that, or how to take it further?
So I think we all kind of touched on it, but one of the first things that you can do, especially to somebody who may not already be interested in this, just going at it from the financial side. My dad always says that money talks, bullcrap walks. And I think that's a great way to look at it, honestly. If you can calculate what somebody could save by not knowing, especially when they're hiring it out, it's really expensive to have somebody come in and know. And that's just a really great way to start with it. Obviously, we want to convince them to do it for the purpose of the pollinators, of nature, but it's not always a conversation starting point. Just like the project I shared, it started financial and then really moved into, we just want it because we enjoy it. And now they can name all these bird species and insect species that they had never even noticed before.
At the end of the day, the economic argument is probably the one that's going to be the most universally appealing. I mean, you might add to just the maintenance costs, the idea of property values, depending on who you're trying to convince and where. If this is a larger landowner, has the kind of space that could be a large open meadow or prairie, there is some evidence to suggest that open spaces, green spaces, and especially publicly accessible open green spaces do increase property values. So that would apply to both the person doing the installation and their neighbors.
Can you hear the question? So he's basically saying how he wanted an idea of how much it would actually cost in, say, an HOA type situation to make these kind of conversions, right? So when we go to try to make this case, right, what kind of numbers can we give to people?
I'm going to pass the microphone down the line here, but before I do, I'd just like to add that it's entirely dependent on what your specific seed mix is. I mean, you can do this relatively inexpensively if you're doing primarily a prairie grass type of thing, or you can spend a preposterous amount of money on fancy forbs. I have my opinions about that, but...
I can tell you, well, if you're in Lincoln County, I encourage you to enroll in the Meadows for Monarchs project because we will give you the seed mix. If you follow the instructions and prep your site properly, that you can qualify for several acres worth of seed mix. If you were to buy the seed mix as Dave said, it really depends. I know what one of the Ohio-based companies charges for the really high diversity one is like $1,000 an acre. So, for the seed.
And that's really what I was going to touch on the project I was sharing. We used that seed mix from Oak Seeds. And yeah, I believe it was around like $8.75 per acre. So it's a high cost if you're kind of going at it from just a full commercial perspective like that. But then we have groups like the Meadows for Monarchs that can help you out for free. There's also a lot of programs that you can apply to if you're a landowner, especially if any of your land is considered ag land, even if you're not currently using it as ag land. In fact, again, that project that I shared, it used to be a hayfield, still categorized as ag land, so they were able to get a little bit of money back for that. So it's about following these programs that can help a lot.
Get money back from whom?
So there's a CRP is one that you can look into.
Conservation Reserve Program.
Conservation Reserve Program. There's also EQUIP. So this is all government programs. Now, I know in your area they're pretty backed up, some of them, but it's still worth starting that conversation. Because again, the important thing is that we're getting this done. So if you can wait a little bit, you might be able to get it relatively inexpensively or free.
The other program to mention is also the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Partners for Fish and Wildlife. They are backed up, but they will do the installation on plots that are 10 acres or more. Why they were eager to partner with us is because they had so many requests of folks that had 2 acres or 5 acres or a quarter acre that's too small for them to manage. But if we can teach people how to do the site prep themselves, how to maintain them once they're established, they're like, we want to partner with you to do that. And I meant to say this earlier that the training that they did and at Ohio State are also on our website. I know the webinars I mentioned, but I also wanted to mention that because the idea is we want this to be replicated, and as we bring on a new cohort of property owners this year, we can point them to, here's how to do it.
One more program for larger landowners would be Pheasants Forever. They also provide seed, generally not installation. My advice is go down to your local soil and water office, and there's going to be somebody in that building who can hook you up with all of these different government programs.
I just want to speak for the aesthetics just for one more minute, because I think they might be tied to the economics. Because if you say, yeah, I value that, look, I value those insects, that space, those hourly, clock, that might be the incentive to spend the money. So I don't know, maybe I just meant to say that.
Alderman Gill. What plans are there for ongoing maintenance and invasive removal, Canada thistle, Canada goldenrod?
There's a whole section of that in the how, but that's...
Session 2.
Yeah.
Come to part 2.
The short answer is there are considerable maintenance aspects that you want to think about as soon as you start planning your seed mix and the scope of work and everything else. So yes, this is less maintenance and less expensive than a lawn, but it is not free.
I saw another hand somewhere.
How come we have?
We've got about 2 more minutes.
Okay.
I am with a volunteer group from Campbellwood Lake, HOA in Morrow County, and we have about 25 volunteers. Down on the north side, about 50 acres, not developed, and put trails through it. 4 years ago, we've planted 4 prairies. We would like to think about doing a community seed collection event to spread it out to the rest of the community. But my question is, we also have a pollinator garden. How much, is there a limit to how much seed they can collect? Like, do you need to leave 2/3 of the seed on the plant? Is it okay to take all of the seed off the plant?
I mean, in my experience, there's nobody really watching at these seed collection events to say, hey, stop now. I mean, obviously, you don't want to take every last scrap, but at the end of the day, most of these perennial plants have very well-developed root systems. So they're far less dependent on overseeding than they are just growing from the roots. There's a Ohio Natural Areas and Preserves Association does one right on the Knox-Morrow line on 95 once a year. And they just sit back and let anybody who comes go crazy. So I think you could probably collect pretty heavily. But
Yeah, I think people want to be respectful of that. And I know that there are scientists that have recommendations on take no more than X% of, I can't recall the number off the top of my head, but in our experience, that there's such a need to get more of these plants out into the larger landscapes that it's those that allow it, encourage it. We were fortunate, we have the Granville Land Lab near the Granville Intermediate School where we have carte blanche ability to be able to do seed collection there, again, so that we can get more of these plants out into the community.
I think you guys covered that pretty well. Do maybe one more?
Yeah, let's do one more.
What's your favorite prairie plant?
Favorite prairie plant, and we'll bring us back here.
boy, it's a toss-up between rattlesnake master and compass plant.
I like Rattlesnake Master.
I think mine is purple prairie clover, but I really like it with butterfly milkweed. So anytime I can get those two together, it's almost all of my full sun gardens are going to have that in there. Because we always want a milkweed. It's a great milkweed, and that purple and orange is it's just great.